nc.gov, or follow us on Twitter. You may also call in and listen to the meeting at 408-418-9388. Again, 408-418-9388, and enter the following access code: 714-941-986. 714-941-986. Since we're meeting remotely, we begin by each board member identifying him or herself so that the records can reflect who is present and participating in the meeting. I will introduce myself and then call upon each of my colleagues to do the same as I call out their respective district. This process allows the public to know who is present and participating, and also provides an accurate record for our clerk and the board minutes. So I am George Dunlap. I'm elected by the people. Yes. And I have the privilege of serving as chair of the board. So this time we'll call upon our at-large commissioners, beginning with Commissioner Pat Cotham.
Good afternoon. This is Pat Cotham, County Commissioner at Large.
Commissioner Ella Scarborough.
Ella Scarborough, County Commissioner at Large.
Commissioner Fuller.
Good afternoon. This is Commissioner Trevor Fuller. I'm Commissioner at Large. Happy to be with us this afternoon. I am participating remotely.
District 1 Representative.
This is County Commissioner Elaine Powell. I am participating remotely. I represent District 1, which is all of North Mecklenburg County. Thank you.
And you serve as Vice Chair.
And I also serve as Vice Chair.
All right. Commissioner District 2.
This is Commissioner Vilma D. Leak. I'm happy to be with all of you today.
All right. District 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is County Commissioner Mark Jarrell. I've been elected by the people of District 4.
District 5.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan B. Harden, and I represent District 5, and I am joining the meeting remotely.
And District 6.
Good afternoon. This is Susan Rodriguez McDowell, elected by the people of District 6 and participating remotely.
And so for the record, all the commissioners have acknowledged their presence in the meeting. Therefore, we have a quorum. Now, I'd also like for the following persons to introduce themselves. Clerk to the board.
Good afternoon. Emily Kunze, clerk to the board.
Deputy Clerk.
Good afternoon. I'm Christine Smith, Deputy Clerk.
And County Manager.
This is Dena Diorio, Mecklenburg County Manager.
And our County Attorney.
Good afternoon, Tyrone Wade, County Attorney.
So I'd ask everybody to make sure we're on mute and please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, a couple of housekeeping rules before we move on. Since we are again conducting a remote meeting this afternoon, there are a few housekeeping rules that we'll have to operate by in order to govern our actions so that the board minutes are accurate and it accurately reflects the actions consistent with the law. If a commissioner wishes to leave the meeting, please ask for a point of personal privilege. State the privilege so that the minutes can capture the action and attendance of each board member. When a commissioner returns, please announce your return when there is an opportunity to do so. Since there are no action items on the agenda this afternoon, the board will only receive updates on matters on the agenda. Only on matters on the agenda. However, in order that our records and minutes are accurate, it is still necessary that I recognize each commissioner and ask whether or not they have comments. Please wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking and refrain from speaking over one another. May I also suggest that each speaker end his or her comments by saying, "This concludes my comments." If a commissioner does not have any comments, please state, I have no comments, or I do not wish to speak to this matter. Now, given that our meeting ends at a time certain, I've looked at the number of items on the agenda, and I have tried to allocate the time where I think the time would probably most be needed. So I will allocate a total of no more than 40 minutes for the Central Piedmont Community College budget request, no more than 40 minutes for the Mecklenburg County Court officials request, no more than 40 minutes for the covert update, and then the remaining 20 minutes will be commissioners' reports. We don't have to use all that time. I just wanted to know what that limit is, and we'll have to divide our time into each one of those categories so that everybody will have the same opportunity if they wish to speak. So at this time, I'm going to call on our county manager for the CPCC presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two, as you indicated, we have two budget items on our agenda this afternoon. The first is a presentation by President Candy Diedemeyer of Central Piedmont to present her budget request to the Board of County Commissioners. So at this time, I will turn it off to Ms. Diedemeyer. Ms. Diedemeyer, are you with us?
Hello, Ms. Diorio. This is Mike Whiteman. Give me just a second to check her office.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, while he's doing that, let me just remind everybody that these presentations, as it relates to the budget, this is just the beginning of the process. So we're going to have plenty of time to ask questions and do it in the light of day. But if you don't get your questions asked today, please feel free to put it in an email and send it to the county manager, and you will get a response to your question. As usual, everybody will get the same reply to the question you asked, whether they ask the question or not, because they may be thinking the same thing. So if you don't get your questions answered today, you'll still have an opportunity to do that by sending or addressing your comments to the county manager. Dr. Diedemeyer, are you here?
Mr. Chairman, my apologies. A little technical difficulty here at the college, but I am with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You're on.
Good. Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Manager Diorio for the introduction, and thank you to the rest of the commissioners for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. Let me first just thank each of you for your service to our county, and just thank you again for the opportunity on behalf of our Board of Trustees, our faculty and our staff, and certainly our students to be here to give you an update, our annual update, and to present our budget proposal. If I may, I just want to acknowledge we do have a couple of Central Piedmont leaders on the call today. You will hear in just a few moments from Mike Whiteman, our VP of Finance and Administrative Services, who will do the budget portion of our presentation. Also on the call today, Dr. Kevin McCarthy, Dr. Heather Hill, Dr. Tracy Clark, David Kim, and Jeff Laurent. I must tell you, this is an incredible leadership team, and I've never been more proud of them over the last few weeks on all that we've been able to accomplish. And we will talk a little bit about that this afternoon in our presentation. Let me also acknowledge, if I may, Mr. Chair, your county team led by Manager Diorio. She and those on her team continue to be exceptional partners to work with, and they truly exemplify professionalism in all that they do on your behalf. So we are grateful here at Central Piedmont for that continued partnership.
Thank you.
In your board materials, you should have received an electronic copy of Central Piedmont's annual performance report, which we produced for the Board of County Commissioners, and we wanted to send that to you in advance of today's meeting. But we do have a printed copy for you, and it will be forthcoming to you in the mail. So I do hope you'll take time to read that report. It's a pretty comprehensive overview of our year. With that said, if you want to go to the next slide. As we begin today, I want to just publicly acknowledge the incredible work of our faculty and staff this past year. Pre-COVID-19, we were having a remarkable year at the college, and we still are, but specifically around our strategic initiatives with a focus on students and their success, and ensuring that we are continuing to develop the talent needed for our regional workforce. We believe post-COVID-19, the college will be needed even more by our community, and we remain steadfast to be that partner for our community. We remain steadfast in our vision as well, to be a champion of students, the catalyst for opportunity, and exceptional provider of learning experiences. Next slide. So as we like to do, we always bring the commissioners up to speed on the number of students that we serve. You'll see the total head count here of just over 40,000 and the breakdown by both gender and race. Given the time today, I'll let you look at that yourself, but we remain a majority female as well as a majority minority institution. The county of service that we certainly serve is Mecklenburg County, and that is the largest population that we serve, but we gave you a breakdown there of some other counties of individuals that come into our college as well as their age breakdown. On the right-hand side, let me just talk a little bit about the graduates, and I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to pivot for graduation. But you see the number of graduates that we anticipate there, 2,222 to receive a degree and a diploma, and just over 250 that would have received a high school credential. Next slide. Oftentimes we talk a lot with the commissioners about our partnership with CMS. This is one of our largest partnerships, so I wanted to give you an update. First, to the right, you'll see that recently our Middle College High School at the Cato campus is just one of 3 Charlotte area high schools that ranked in the nation's top 500 by U.S. News and World Report. So we're not only very proud of the Middle College faculty and staff, but also the faculty and staff who work on that campus from Central Piedmont. A couple of numbers there for you just to understand the impact that we're having. The middle colleges at Cato, Levine, Harper, and Maracas have just over 830 students in grades 11 through 13. So that's about, if you see the college tuition saved there, just over 20,000 tuition-free college credits this past academic year. That comes to about $1.5 million in savings for CMS families. Next, we have about 3,700 students from high school that are participating in Career and College Promise. Those are high school juniors and seniors. You see the number of career and technical pathways there on the slide. But I also want to point out that given the numbers that we serve, Central Piedmont is we have the most Career and College Promise students of any other North Carolina community college. And so we feel pretty great about that in terms of the service that we're doing for our community. Those particular students have earned just over 23,000 tuition-free college credits this year. And again, that comes to about $1.7 million in savings. So if you think about those two CMS populations that we're serving within the middle college population as well as Career and College Promise, that's a little over $3 million of tuition savings for our Mecklenburg County families. Next slide. Very quickly, I wanted to bring you up to date on some other partnerships that are really helping in terms of economic mobility, transferability and transfer with UNC Charlotte, which is our largest transfer partner, and then also building the talent pipeline for our community. So on the left of that slide, you'll recognize junior achievement. In October of 2019, Central Piedmont opened a storefront in Junior Achievement's Central Carolina's Junior Achievement Finance Park here in Charlotte. It's a program spearheaded by Junior Achievement USA to prepare young people for the real world by teaching them how to follow a monthly budget, really think about what it costs, what are the actual costs of living, how to think critically, how to solve problems. So students are asked to come into this finance park and kind of pick a career choice. Then they have to kind of plan out a virtual life, so to speak. What does it cost to get an education? What does it cost to do transportation and housing, and determine whether or not the career of choice that they're thinking about, how that would really look in a real life platform. And we do have a who works at the Piedmont location, and they work specifically with students on the different career aspects and opportunities, the educational pathways that we offer. talk to them about how to apply for college, as well as fill out financial aid. I'm really excited to report to you that Central Piedmont is the first community college in the country to participate in this national program. And we believe, given the sound financial principles and kind of thinking through life on the front end for really these middle college or these middle and early high school students is really a good thing for those making a choice. In the centerpiece, as always, 49 are next, our program with UNC Charlotte. We announced this program on October 3rd. You'll see the picture there of myself and my good friend, Chancellor Dubois. But this program we soft launched in August. It's a new co-admission program to make sure that students can really seamlessly transfer to UNC Charlotte with some greater intentionality. And so what that looks like is we co-admit the student to the program, do intentional advising, fully integrate kind of a student's experience. They can take advantage of what is happening at Central Piedmont, as well as some aspects of student life at UNC Charlotte. As long as they finish a 2-year degree and graduate with a 2.0 GPA, then they are guaranteed admission into a number of programs at the university. Currently, the college is marketing directly to CMS and others about this program. And given where we are in the COVID situation, we know that some students' college plans may change, and we're reaching out to them even more intentionally and hoping to get them to consider Central Piedmont as well as this 49er Next seamless transition project. When we launched this program in October, the college also was able to let the community know that we had received $1 million gift to provide scholarships. That $1 million gift came from Peggy and Bob Culbertson. It's really to support students as they try to navigate into UNC Charlotte. And finally, the Year Up project that you see there, another national program that we house here at Central Piedmont. Our partners, the John M. Belk Endowment, as well as Bank of America, who is our largest corporate partner. We launched this in August of 2019. It's a year-long program. Students come to the college, take some courses their second semester. They're out in the field of work, really honing their professional skills. And so by the time a student ends this program, typically the national trend is in 4 months, they're making at least about $40,000. The first 53 students began in the fall, and it's actually the largest cohort this national entity has ever launched. So again, we're proud that we are that partner with Year Up. Next slide. Real quickly, I always like to tell you a good feel-good student story, and this one is one that needs to be told. This is a mother and her son, Muriel and Amani Magliore. They came to the college because the young man did not really know exactly what he wanted to do upon high school graduation. They came for a tour and to kind of check out Central Piedmont, and mom came with her son. As they were here, although she has another degree and some certifications, perhaps she wasn't as happy in those job opportunities as she could be. So they came to campus, and once they did, she said to the son on the way home, well, how would you feel if I came back to college with you? He said, I think that would be pretty great. Both of these students will graduate in May with non-destructive examination technology degrees, and they're very excited. They're just trying to figure out who's going to graduate with the highest GPA. So I can report back to you on that at another time. But we're very excited that we have a great story there, a great family story between mom and son. Next slide. And as we always try to support our students, I thought the commissioners would be interested in knowing that back in the fall, in October, we did launch a campaign for Central Piedmont. It really is a 5-year fundraising effort from the foundation to raise $40 million, the most ambitious and comprehensive campaign in the college's history. You see the priorities there. Really what I would say to you about this is we have about 2.5 years to go. Pre-COVID, we are just shy of raising $30 million already. We still have 2.5 years to meet our goal. We anticipate we will be able to do that. But what I'm most proud about this is that all of the dollars will go to support students, our programs, our faculty. So it really is a campaign surrounding how we kind of put the power behind where we're going in terms of people. Next slide. The last couple of things, as I heard your conversation with Representative Adams earlier, thought you would be interested to know specifically how we have met some of the student needs for COVID-19. I won't read all of these to you given the time. I will say to you, though, students have not been on campus since March the 6th. The college has remained open, even though we are obviously working in a remote learning environment and a teleworking environment. We were on spring break when the stay-at-home orders began to kind of roll out across our county and state, and we extended spring break by 1 week to move those 1,500 class sections into an online delivery format. Never been more proud of the faculty and staff. The picture you see there, just within a week to 10 days, I would guess we've had procured technology to hand out to students who just simply did not have the technology required to move to a remote learning environment. You see the distribution numbers there of both laptops and hotspots. Those are early captured numbers. Those things continue even today. We have postponed graduation ceremony. We will not be at Bojangles in May, obviously. We're going to do some smaller ceremonies to celebrate our students as long as we feel confident that we're able to do that in late July. And then we will start our summer session fully online in hopes that perhaps in the second summer session, we can begin to open some things up and test out some protocols. So next slide. Part of that support has also been making sure we're taking care of our community and helping meet some of their needs. We have reached out over the weeks to emergency management about our facilities, had a blood drive. The largest thing I would say in terms of contribution is the number of supplies that you see there that we were able to donate that we had because of the plethora of healthcare programs that we have to Atrium and Novant. Also, we've been able to, if you move to the next slide, you will see we've also been engaged in making some masks with our engineering technology program in response with Charlotte Latin. And so we're excited that we've been able to do that as well. And finally, we've been reaching out to CMS and will continue to do so in terms of their seniors. We again know that many graduates their celebrations have been impacted, but perhaps their college plans as well. And so you see some intentional multiple direct mail pieces that we'll be doing there to inform parents and seniors about the opportunities they may have to really stay here, stay safe, stay on track with their education right here in Charlotte, Mecklenburg. And lastly, before I turn it over to Mike, next slide, I'd just like to point out to you, we may have mentioned, I know we did to the county team, that we would be doing a security vulnerability assessment at the college. This really began the day after the tragedy at UNC Charlotte. And so we hired a Marsh risk consultant to come in, and over the fall semester, you will see they came in and did a physical assessment of each campus. They conducted formal and informal interviews with faculty, staff, students, and other constituents, reviewed a lot of our practices, our action plans, and they came back with primarily, we've been able to already begin training, policy development, and other improvements. One thing that was one of the largest was that we needed to kind of bring some of the things around environmental health and safety, security, risk, and emergency management under one leader. It was kind of spread out across our leadership platform. So we are in the throes of beginning to look at that as well. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Whiteman, who will present to you our budget priorities, and then we will open it up for any questions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present our proposed budget for you today. What we have in front of you is our budget priorities. And the first thing we do when developing our budget is establish our budget priorities and make sure that they align with our strategic plan's goals. It's important that we make sure that our budget entails keeping pace with inflation and sustaining operations. We also want to ensure the safety of our students, faculty, and staff. We want to make sure we can provide a high quality, clean, and organized learning environment for our students. We want to be sure to invest in our employees to provide high quality education that our students deserve, and ensure that we are protecting the county's investments in our buildings and infrastructure. Next slide, please. What you see in front of you here is our proposed requested budget. There are four main categories of our county budget. The first three deal with maintenance and operation of the college's infrastructure. The fourth helps us hire and retain high-quality faculty and staff that our students deserve, which I mentioned before. The largest pot of money is where you would imagine, or the largest request is where we think it should be, in facility maintenance. So in summary, for fiscal 21, we're anticipating a zero ask for capital purchases. We're anticipating an ask of $28,065,000 for facility maintenance, facility support costs of $2,371,000, and a proposed request for wage and benefit allocation of $9,255,000. That totals $39,691,317 for an increase of 4.77%. Next slide, please. This particular slide shows the detail of each of our line items on the previous slide. Each of those line items are highlighted in brown for your reference. I'd like to point out just a few lines that we want to make sure that we are providing you information on. Our salary and benefits line builds in a 2% raise for our staff. It also includes investing in an associate vice president of safety and security based on the recommendation from our security evaluation analysis. I'd also like to point out rows 4 and 9 at the same time. You will see decreases in both of those lines. Those are largely fruits of using the deferred maintenance money and helping to update our infrastructure, energy efficiencies, and things of that nature. So we're seeing good savings in both of those lines. I'd also like to point out line number 7, that's our largest area of request. The increase there is largely due to the contractual increase that we pay to our third-party facilities maintenance service provider. We have an increase in building square footage and also a consumer price index increase that is a result of that contract. The last piece is row 13. We always want to point out, we did realize we did build in a 2% raise for our faculty and staff, and this is only the supplement portion. However, the number's relatively small due to some turnover that we've had, which allows us to have some savings in that area. Next slide, please. For your analysis and information, I always like to show a 35,000-foot view of our proposed county allocation compared to the prior year. What you will see is that from year to year, our percentage allocation to each of the buckets remains the same. Capital purchases, facility maintenance, and security is our largest piece of the allocation. And as you can imagine, wages and benefits and the wage and benefit allocation are the combined second largest piece of the allocation. Facility support costs, as you remember, or as you recall, are largely insurances and legal fees. Next slide, please. We always want to make sure that we show the overall operating budget for Central Piedmont. We have 3 main buckets of funding. The first, as you can see at the bottom, is our county funding, which is meant to be used for infrastructure and maintenance operations. The next 3 lines is 1 bucket, but split into 3 sub-buckets, and that's our institutional funds. Student financial aids and grants, the largest that we received to the tune of roughly $27 million. That comes into Central Piedmont, but then gets pushed right back up to the state of North Carolina. Auxiliary services, those are items such as our bookstore, WTVI, and security operations. Student fees and continuing education, those are student fees that we charge. For example, our campus access parking and security fees, our lab fees, and our technology fees. It's important to note that our auxiliary services and our student fees and continuing education fees must be used for the purposes for which they're charged, and they're not able to be diverted to salaries or other items that they are not meant to be used for. We don't want to charge the students for a certain item, but then use the money for another item. The last piece of the budget, the largest piece, is our state allocation, roughly $99.9 million. And that money must be used for instruction and instructional support costs. It cannot be used for maintenance of our infrastructure and buildings. Next slide, please. Switching gears to our deferred maintenance projects. What I wanted to do was provide an overview of our stewardship of our deferred maintenance funds. As you can see, our projects range from safety code improvements, energy efficiency projects, roof repair and replacements, infrastructure and facility upfits. Those last three combined, as you saw on a previous slide, are really helping us save money and save in utilities and energy costs in our operations. Additionally, as shown on the bottom left, the status of each of our projects. We have 51 deferred maintenance projects planned. 32 have been completed. 17 projects are in progress, and 2 have not yet started. And both of those are from the 2020 funding that we received, and that's the year we're in currently. We expect to start those by the end of this fiscal year. Next slide, please. This is the detail of our proposed projects for the upcoming fiscal 21 year. You'll see these costs are in round numbers because we did of each project on our history and knowledge of working in these areas. Once these are approved, we will solicit bids and fine tune the cost of each of these projects. As you can see, these projects relate to security, replacing roofs near the end of their useful life, and equipment efficiencies for the increase in our buildings, increase in the number of our buildings. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk just a little bit about how our deferred maintenance efforts have transitioned into our sustainability efforts. As you can see over the past, this is 12 years, but most of the deferred maintenance fund efforts have occurred in the past 4 years. We've increased our building footprint by 37%. At the same time, you can see decreased total energy consumption, decreased energy per square foot by 37%, and decreased total energy expenses by 5.4%. Recycling, we continue to put an emphasis on our culinary arts program, and our Harris Conference Center continue to compost almost 20 tons of food each year. Waste food, that is. Central Piedmont also, with our recycling efforts, recycles approximately 150 tons of paper, cardboard, glass, plastic, and metal per year. Additionally, our efforts from the deferred maintenance funds have helped reduce water consumption per square foot, and also an overall water savings of 1.9 million gallons compared to 2019 compared to 2018. Next slide, please. We recently undertook an economic impact study on CP's contributions to the economy. The study looked at the activities that CP creates, the jobs we create, and the jobs we create that contribute to Mecklenburg County's economy via spending. Overall, based on statistical models, we contribute approximately $1.2 billion annually to Mecklenburg County economy. And there's a breakdown there of where the categories of that economic impact. You can see $155.4 million in operation spending, roughly 36.5 in construction spending, 42.1 in student spending, and approximately 919.5 million of college alumni who still live and work in the Mecklenburg County area. One of the key factors we learned from this study is for every dollar students invest in Central Piedmont, they receive approximately $3.20 back in future earnings for an annual rate of return of 15.5%. So that concludes my remarks, and I will turn the microphone back over to Dr. Dena.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Chair, that concludes our presentation.
Okay, thank you for that. By my account, we have, I think, 15 minutes for this period of questions.
2 minutes and 37 seconds.
How much?
12 and a half minutes.
Oh, 12 and a half minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just give everybody a chance to ask one question if you have one. And if you'll send the rest of your questions in, the manager will get them to Dr. Dena Diorio to make sure you get a response. Let's start with Commissioner Leak.
Thank you. Let me say thank you for your presentation. My problem is we gave you everything last year, so there is an increase in needs. Is that what you're saying for us now?
Yes, ma'am. Let me ask Mike come back over and go over those percentage increases one more time.
Sure. The main point of the main driver in the increase is our contractual obligation to the third-party facilities maintenance service provider of $1.4 million, and that's really driving the increase in our ask this particular year.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Jarrell.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Harden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, in my mind, this seems like a relatively modest increase in requests. Could we see your requests maybe for the last 5 years, or could we get a little bit more history than just 1 year?
Sure, I'll be happy to provide that.
Okay, that's great. And Dr. Dena Diorio, I just want to emphasize, just what a great job CPCC does for our community, what a tremendous partner you are with the university. I teach many of our transfer students, and your institution does a great job preparing them for, the dollar investments that we make at the community college level into kids going on to higher education through a 4-year degree. It's just really a tremendous bargain for our community. And it's such a pleasure to teach the students that you prepare. So I just want to thank you for, everything that you, across all programs, regardless of whether they're 2-year or 4-year bound students. But just really, I say that economic impact is understated. And I can tell you that the value of those education to those students is worth, way more than the money on there. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
That concludes my comments.
All right, Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for the presentation, and I really appreciated the statistics where, drawing out that $3 million in tuition savings is realized by Met County families. I think that's really important for us to highlight, and the $1.2 billion annually in the gross regional product. So I don't have any further questions or anything at this time, but this concludes my comments.
All right, Commissioner Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Dena Diorio, for your presentation and your colleagues' presentation. I don't have any specific questions. I would like at some time that, and I appreciated our exchange this past week regarding homeless students at Central Piedmont, and I hope sometime in the future you can alert the board to the needs of some of the students who are not only food insufficient, but also housing or living on the streets or in unstable housing, so that they can better understand what your challenges are there. But thank you for your service and for this presentation. That concludes my comments.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Dena Diorio and Dr. Whiteman, for your presentations. I don't have a question so much as a request, but before I say that, I do want to note that my daughter, our youngest, is graduating this year from the middle college as a dean. and it has been a tremendous experience for her. We live in a zone where she would have been at Ardrey Kell, and while it's a good school, it's a very big school. And she has found that her experience at the middle college has been quite enriching for her. And you speak about the advantage to a family of the instructional advantage that children get. She's going to enter college next year, essentially as a sophomore. And that is that's a tremendous place to be. And so I can't speak highly enough of the experience at the middle college, both for the students and for families. And so I think we need to continue to support that. The request I would make of you is that we've heard some financial information that we're going to be experiencing this year in light of the COVID-19 situation. And we don't know exactly what our financial condition will be as we move into our budget. And I'm not, I don't know what the county manager will recommend. We'll find out at the end of the week. But I wonder if you could think about if we have to stay steady from last year, or even if we have to cut, where you think that would be. I'm not suggesting you have any fat on your request. I'm not suggesting that, but if we had to stay steady, or if we had to cut, I'd like you to think about that. And if you could, and you don't have to answer now, but if you could let us know that, so that as we get into our budget cycle, if we're facing that situation, we can make some decisions in light of your response. But I would just say overall that the investments that we make in CPCC are excellent investments, and that's why CPCC is at the top of community colleges throughout not only our state but our country. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That ends my comments.
All right, Commissioner Scarborough.
No comments.
All right, Commissioner Powell.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. And I'd like to know what day was this submitted? When was it prepared?
I think if I'm correct, we submitted it a week ago. That would have been Thursday, prior to your, whenever county staff asked us to get it to them. I think we got it to them on Thursday. Is that correct, Mike? Yes. Thank you. I was just trying to get a time frame because I agree with Commissioner Fuller. I expect that we will be facing cuts. And so I think it's good to be prepared for that. Where would be the most strategic place to cut as we're in this emergency situation. And I also wanted to say, thank you so much for the middle college program, because I meet parents all the time that tell me success stories, just as Commissioner Fuller mentioned. But what I really want to talk to is about the community support that you have and the slides that you had on that. And I would just encourage you to share that story more, because the beauty of goodness and the beauty of people reaching out and helping each other through this hard time is what gives me hope. And it doesn't get a lot of media time or attention, but I'm seeing a lot of the beauty of goodness in people, and it can really all work together to get through this. And so I really love the slides that you had on what you guys are doing for community support. And that concludes my comments. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Dietermeyer, I am going to give you back my time. However, I'm going to ask that you take a moment to share with the board about the upcoming vacancy on your board, because I'm excited about the person that you're recommending to the board. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about that person. I know I'm probably putting you on the spot.
You are.
I'm excited, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about it.
Well, Chairman Dunlap, I appreciate you, and you would put me on the spot because I appreciate the time actually, and so I'll forgive you. It's gracious of you to do so. If I can, Mr. Chair, I know we're pressed for time. I will talk a little bit about who we are asking you all to consider, but to the commissioner's points about the understanding of the budget status, you have our commitment that we will work with the county staff to do whatever possible. So we've heard you, and we stand ready, as I said, to work with your team as we always do. So pivoting to your question, now that I've had a minute to think about it. So we have asked the commissioners to consider Mr. Jim Dunn of Atrium Health. And we kind of went into that thinking this before COVID, because we anticipated and understand as your workforce engine and partner in terms of talent development, that healthcare is truly the #1 workforce opportunity for our community. And so now here we are in the midst of COVID and not understanding what it will look like coming out. Having someone on our board who can work in full partnership about what the needs of the largest industry I think makes a lot of good sense. Mr. Dunn and I have met not only through our service on Mech Count Complete in terms of the census work, but we serve on a number of other things, and of course have been in many meetings. We've had his team over, about 15 or so of them, to meet what are the needs of the healthcare industry. We've done that with Novant as well, just for your information. But he and I have gotten to know each other, and I think his expertise, the advantage and leverage of what Atrium does in our community really was the conversation we had internally and then with our board leadership of who would be a good fit. And so we certainly hope as a county commissioning board, as you hold your interviews or think about that appointment, that it makes as much sense to you and that you will affirm that seat for us.
Thank you, Dr. Dena Diorio, as always. We appreciate your preparedness and presenting this information to us. But like Commissioner Fuller and Commissioner Powell, I'm sure you will say to us, if in fact we get to that point and there has to be a cut, hopefully there won't, but we'll know what that priority status is. That will be beneficial to us because we wouldn't want to do anything that will be detrimental to the university, and would like to have your input on that.
Be glad to do so. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll go back to our county manager for our next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have the court officials budget request up next, but I do just want to take a personal privilege and say that the slide that Dr. Dietermeyer showed about Muriel Magliore and her son, I'm actually Muriel's mentor, and she is a tremendous woman, and I will tell you she's also the only female in her program, and that has presented her with many interesting challenges as she has gone through that, and she's successfully graduating, and it was a real honor and privilege for me to be able to participate in that. So I wanted to thank Dr. Dietermeyer for putting her slide up on the screen. And with that, we will turn it over to Charleston Carter, who is with the Trial Court Administrator's Office, to present the court officials' budget request for fiscal year 21.
Welcome, Dr. Carter.
One, two.
We got you.
Testing 1 2 1 2.
Okay, Dr. Carter, we got you.
Good afternoon, County Manager and Commissioners. I hope all you are doing well. I'm Charleston Carter, the Trial Court Administrator for the 26th District. Today, I represent the entire district as we are a united voice for fair and accessible justice for the community. And when I say we, I'm referencing the key court officials who are present on the call with us this afternoon. They are the Senior Resident Superior Court Judge, William Bell, District Court Judge, Elizabeth Trosh, Clerk of Superior Court and Judge of Probate, Elisa Chingari, District Attorney, Spencer Merriweather, Chief Public Defender, Kevin Tully. Also on the call are some members from our Trial Court Administrator's Office, as well as Larry King Clubhouse Executive Director, Gloria Peters. We work collaboratively on a daily basis, like you do, for our mutual stakeholders, the citizens of Mecklenburg County. Next slide, please. I take our mission statements very seriously. Mecklenburg County is truly a community of pride and choice for our citizens to live, learn, work, and recreate. We've seen and continue to experience how the combined missions of Mecklenburg County, the North Carolina Judicial Branch, and the 26th Judicial District can operate in one accord to prevent and solve problems, guide and direct orderly operations, and preserve the quality of life for individuals in our community. It is a daunting task, but the leaders that are on this phone call and you that are in the room have risen above all expectations. Our commitment to share values and beliefs is vital for the justice, fairness, integrity, respect, wisdom, cooperation, quality, and community responsibility. In the spirit of collaboration and with your support, we can move forward to strengthen not only our missions, but we can also continue to thrive in the midst of uncertain times. Next slide, please. What I will cover with you today is to thank you for your support, the 26th Judicial District data, state funding, return on investment, requests, and questions. Next slide, please. The 26th District is a testament of our vision and wise management. Other districts in North Carolina Judicial Branch look to us, not just because we are the largest judicial district in North Carolina, but that we are on the cutting edge of planning and operations. Your support helped us to provide an updated strategic plan that has propelled and streamlining operations, included a future upgraded case management, updated technology in our courtroom, a technical associate, and as we currently are experiencing, the ability to continue to serve and respond to the community in creative and an organized manner. Thank you, County Manager and Commissioners. Because of you, our citizens are more informed and empowered when they enter the Mecklenburg Courthouse. Your funding of the self-serve center, for example, has allowed extended hours from 8:30 in the morning to 4. The self-serve center has just celebrated 20 years of service of individuals who can now represent themselves in various ways by receiving forms, educational resources, and the guidance to, in some cases, avoid unnecessary litigation. The self-serve center does not give legal advice, but it does give hope and security to those who might otherwise not have a voice in their own defense. Last year in December, when we celebrated 20th anniversary for the self-serve center, we thanked you all personally, because we let no stone go unturned how appreciative we are of you. Next slide, please. Last year, when I presented the budget, we spoke about something that was called the Debt Relief Program. To give you some information about it, North Carolina requires that driver license be automatically revoked for non-payment of traffic tickets 40 days after court judgment is entered. However, a hearing is not required to determine whether the individual is capable of paying fines and fees. Thousands of people in Mecklenburg County have had their driving license suspended due to traffic charges and the inability to pay for court fines, costs, fees associated with the ticket. Let me share a video with you and I'll give a response afterwards.
You have a traffic fine from more than 2 years ago that you still haven't paid, well, you could be off the hook. The Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office is giving drivers a second chance because it believes this is the right thing to do. WBTV's Dedrick Russell explains, all new at 6.
Take a look at this POW. It's about 1,000 motions to forgive people with unpaid traffic fines that could range from 10 to 50 court fees that can run about $200. One of the POW's offenses dates back to the 80s. Motions like this have been submitted in court every Friday since September. It is estimated more than 11,000 offenders will get relief.
It's simply criminalizing someone for not having the means to pay an old court cost. And we don't think that's right.
Robin Withrow is an assistant DA working on this project. She says this second chance is only for those with minor traffic violations only.
It could be something like a registration, a failure to notify DMV of a change of address.
For many, their driver's license has been suspended. This forgiveness will be a welcomed relief.
Giving them the ability to drive on a lawful driver's license, get to work, take care of their family, take parents or children to doctor's appointments and not be in fear of being stopped. Yeah, I mean, it's a game changer.
It was certainly a game changer for Megan Stevens' boyfriend. He got a speeding ticket back in 2012. He didn't pay the fine, and it stalled him.
He's not able to get a car or, drive to work and stuff like that. He's got to take the bus or an Uber.
And that adds up. Stevens' boyfriend was recently told his fines have been forgiven.
I think that's great. A speeding ticket from 2012 shouldn't stop you from getting your license.
It is already state law that one can petition the courts to forgive.
Mr. Chairman, am I the only one who can't hear anything?
Forgiveness has happened before, but never in bulk like this in Mecklenburg County.
I can hear it, Commissioner Fuller.
We need to focus our resources on perhaps more important things.
He may have to log out and log back in like I did, but I can hear it.
WBTV on your side.
And the theory is if people haven't paid their traffic fines in 2 years, they have no intention of paying it. Other counties are now looking into how Mecklenburg County handles this forgiveness program.
Thank you. Through Mecklenburg County Debt Relief for License Restoration Project, I'm so thankful that the county manager and county commissioners believed in us so much that they afforded us $15,000 to be able to do the debt relief program. So just to put that in perspective for you, that was 11,456 cases. Divided as it relates to dividing that into $15,000, that equates to $1.31. You have changed someone's lives forever because you invested that $1.31 in them because you believe in giving back to the community. And that's what projects that the court always focus on. How can we do to give back to the community? Because it's so important to us to make sure that we have a positive perception on the courts. And to continue with some of the funding that Mecklenburg County has afforded us, you probably have seen on the first floor in the courthouse, we have digital signage up. What we used to have in the past, where we had paper that was taped to the walls before the courtroom, we now have digital signage that someone can look and see where they are in the courtroom or what courtroom they need to be in. We have the evidence presentation system that the attorneys can present their evidence, public defender's office can present their evidence, or even a pro se can present their evidence. We also have the jury replacement with the computers and the microphones so that someone can hear a person speaking in the courtroom. All of these things are beneficial to the citizens of Mecklenburg County. It's because, again, we're believing in what we're doing in the court system. Next slide, please. Mecklenburg County average daily jail population has decreased slightly again. And as you can see from the chart, we have to take out the federal inmates and what we consider the state sentence misdemeanors for the program. And once you take those numbers out, like we have done over the years, it has slightly decreased from 2018, about the daily rate was about 998, to 2019, about 983. Although it's decreased on a small portion, it's still showing that we are doing something right in our court system. Next slide, please. The National Center for State Courts has benchmarks that they always try to make sure that the courts are measured by. And as it relates to measuring the courts and clearance rate, the National Center indicates that if you're above 90%, you are doing a great job in your court system. And for 2098, We are at 98%, which we should be applauded for, and we truly appreciate it. But it's always our ultimate goal to go over 100%. As we go over 100%, then that means that we are decreasing our backlog cases. So that's always our goal in the futures ahead. Next slide, please. As we have often heard about how much that the judicial branch receives as it relates to funding for the court, it is actually less than 2%. And we have to take that 2% of what we're given for our court system. And that's the reason why it is so important that we have partners like the county commissioners to see the need that we need for the court, to try to address those needs, to always enhance our operations in our court system. Next slide, please. And as it relates to revenues contributions collected, you'll see is about $249 million, which the next slide, please. It equates to about 45% of the court budget is covered by fees. It is essentially 1 penny out of every tax dollar that is being spent to support the court system. Next slide, please. We talk about supplementing and supplements from the county is roughly about 19%. And that 19% equates to about $6 million in assisting us across the board with our court operations that we truly are appreciative of. Next slide, please. I have to mention again about the self-serve center, because the self-serve center is the only self-serve center in the state of North Carolina that serves as a model. And this self-serve center last year helped about 16,000 individuals for whatever they needs for as it relates to court and court operations and understanding, filling out forms, and so forth. And we always get high praises as those individuals come into the self-serve center seeking certain documentation for their particular case. Next slide, please. As it relates to the county request, for personnel, you would see in front of you what we call the AOC contract request. This is the administrative office of the court, a contract that the courts have with the county. And where you see like the clerk of superior court salary cap, the district attorney salary cap, the trial court administrator salary cap, and the public defender salary cap, what we're finding trouble with is hiring individuals for our courts and retaining them based on the salary that we can currently offer them. And we're trying to get some sort of flexibility as it relates to hiring individuals for our agency. The study was done on the state level, and just to give you an example, $38,000 on the state level as it relates to our county contract. We probably only can go up to $32,000, and we don't have wiggle room based on that person's experience or education. But if we had a salary cap based on that person's education and experience, we would have some sort of flexibility on what we could hire our individual and hopefully retain that individual so they won't go elsewhere in a short time frame. As it relates to the AOC contract for the district attorney's office, the district attorney's office with $120,000 is seeking 2 positions. And the reason why it is so important is that those positions centered around domestic violence, and those individuals will work with victims in the courtroom, as well as there's a new law called the Marcy Law that will increase victims' contact that a district attorney needs assistance with. And by having 2 individuals, we will be able to accommodate that new law or that enhanced law. The second request, where you see the request second from the bottom, or third from the bottom, the AOC contract request, the trial court administrator's office. As you all probably recall last year, I mentioned about that the self-serve center, we always first have to go to the state and make a request to the state in terms of various grants that may be offered. We have a position in our self-serve center, domestic violence coordinator's position. And with that position, we have been receiving it for 6 years. Every time we apply for the grant, we received it. Normally, it would take about 3 years, and they say that you got to find some sort of sustainability. But we continued to apply the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th year. We're informed last year that they will no longer provide monies to sustain that particular position. And I'm so grateful that the county in January picked up that position for, but I make the request from January to June because we're starting a new budget cycle. And that same position, although they told me no, that, you know, after 6 years to try to find other funding, I still applied again for the grant money because I want to make sure that we exhaust every possibility before requesting something from the county or to try to find other grant monies elsewhere. And that is the reason for that new position, although we currently have it now and it's being funded in the contract, but because we're starting a new budget cycle, that is the reason why I'm requesting it again. The last thing is the Larry King Clubhouse, which is $5,000. This is mainly for like merit raises and insurance increases. I can tell you as it relates to the Larry King Clubhouse, they're doing a phenomenal job. They have, for the 2019, helped serve approximately 5,000 kids in our court system while those family members took care of business in our court system. Next slide, please. Some of the enhanced improvements, we have microfilming for the clerk's office. This is for the special proceedings area. And they received money back in 2015 that brought them up to 2007 for those special proceedings. And when I say special proceedings, that's centered around like mental health records and so forth. To bring us current from the 2007, the clerk of court office is requesting about $152,000. The second request is the digital signage kiosk. That's also requested by the clerk's office. And why this is so important, when someone comes to the 3rd floor and may be filing a civil matter in the clerk's office, there are long lines. But what happens, a person may be in line for 10 or 15 minutes, only to get to the window to find out that he or she was in the wrong line. But we had a kiosk that was outside of the clerk's office on the same floor. That person would know which line to get into or which window so that we can make sure that we address their needs. The FileSoft project, last year, the Public Defender's Office requested that those files as relates to storage be scanned, and we received the monies for those files. Those files particularly went back to 2017. So now we need the 2018 and 2019 files scanned. And that's for 2 years, the reason why you see the $309,000. Also in the Public Defender's Office, in their conference room, where they may have continuing legal education and presentations, they need a projector in their conference room. And that projector will cost approximately $9,000. The jury management system, it relates to a reoccurring cost for the courthouse. The jury management system is for the entire jury process, from creating the jury pools to executing the payments for jury services for Mecklenburg County. We also have the digital signage. Whenever you come into the courthouse, you may see those digital signage that's in front of the courthouse or the monitors and so forth. To run those 15 monitors that we currently have now, we have to renew our license. And to renew the license for each year is about $9,000. The digital docket displays, just like we mentioned last year, this is a phase approach. And this phase approach is going to be applied to the 5th floor this time. About 7 rooms that will have a digital docket that will place outside of the courtrooms. That will alleviate the clerk having to make copies of the docket and have them placed on the wall. The person will be able to see them like you saw earlier with a digital display on the 1st floor. The evidence presentation system in courtroom 4310, This is the same way that having the attorneys, the district attorney, public defender's office, to be able to present evidence in the courtroom. The furniture replacements for $43,000, this is related to the jury assembly room of the broken chairs, and as well as the courtroom with the broken chairs. And this too is also a phased approach. This does not account for all of the broken chairs that we currently have at this time. We're trying to replace as many as possible, but it's only a phased approach, which will cost $43,000. The video conferencing will also be instrumental if we're able to get that video conferencing, which would have been a tremendous help if we were able to have it during COVID-19, to be able not to do video arraignments, but also to do remote testimony. And truly important. We're trying to put that in courtroom 5370. The controller for the 4-4 displays, well, we're trying to think long-term as it relates to having the digital monitors in each one of the courtrooms. How can we cut off those digital monitors at certain times and have them to cut back on at certain times so we can conserve energy in the courthouse? I always try to think of ways of how we can conserve energy over a long period of time. And the last item is the video conferencing in courtroom 6310. It will be the same as relates to evidence presentation system, which will have a video conference as well as remote testimony that will be crucial to based on what we're currently facing. But it's only a phased approach as relates to the technologies that we are requesting. Next slide, please. I always talk about the spirit of collaboration. And when I talk about spirit of collaboration, whether it's with the city or with the county and the courts, what can we do to ensure we're doing as much as possible? And I want to focus about race matters and juvenile justice. This leadership group works with the community to reduce disproportionate and disparate outcome for children and families of color through institutional, organized, education, and workforce development. How our Civics 101, we do face-to-face format with people who want to learn more about our local government. We do court college and educational program for adults in all aspects of the court system to see how we currently operate. We also want to make sure that we don't leave out the kids as it relates to an educational program for those who are interested in going in law. Maybe that it will spark of interest, that they will want to not only just work in our community, but work for our court system. Next slide, please. I always mention that we have to be a voice, and we are a united voice, and the key court officials, we try to be that. We know that times may be hard, but we try to educate the public on what we're doing and why we're doing it. The number one thing on the National Center for State Courts is public perception. And if we're able to talk to as many people as possible about what the courts are doing and why we operate the way we do, we can hopefully create our own narrative that someone else will tell the next person, and to make sure there's a positive image that the courts are portraying versus a negative. But sometimes people coming into the court, they're already emotionally charged. That's why it is our vision to ensure that we educate as many people as possible about our court system. Next slide, please. Questions?
Okay, Madam Clerk, how much time do we have?
Sorry about that, 15 minutes.
All right, 15 minutes. So let's, again, give everybody an opportunity to ask at least one question. And if you could just send your, email your questions to the county manager, and she will forward them to Mr. Carter and make sure she gets a response. So let's start again with Commissioner Leak, your question.
Let me thank you again. And Mr. Carter, we thank you for your presentation and all that you do to make things real in the courtroom. The thing I want to say to Judge Bell, thank you for your service, son. Remember you at Independent Senior High School. My background is education, and you have been a prime example of Charlotte Mecklenburg school system. One of the things I want to lift up is the court camp. I want to say thank you for the young people who participate in that process. When I first got on the board, I made sure that I took the young people through the court system and making sure that they understood that the poorest of poor who keep up the court system, and where we need to put money is with our court system to make it better so that people will not have to have this experience of going through a system that's already against them in the first place. So thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Carter, and for all of you that work with the court system, especially the judges, some of those who have given their lives to serve in this community to make things better. So I'm grateful for what you've done and will continue to do. I hope that we will finance everything you want except for those chairs. You don't buy furniture every year. And who's breaking those chairs, make them pay for them. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, Commissioner Durrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Charleston, thank you so much for the presentation. Just wanted a quick comment, particularly in regards to the traffic fines. I'm really, really thankful and grateful that we had that level of thoughtfulness on behalf of our residents. I'm one who is a huge believer in second chances. I only sit here because I've been given chances and opportunities in spaces and places that may not have been directly impacted with the courthouse, but potentially probably could have. And I don't think any of us should stand in judgment. And I'm just very thankful for these 11,000 individual residents that have the opportunity to have the slate wiped clean and to move forward in a positive way and don't have to live in the shadows. So just wanted to say thank you for your leadership, all that you're doing. And you did not talk about the dance competition, but I'll talk to you about that offline. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Harden.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. And I want to say that two things. One is that, and this is a comment, I continue to be frustrated about the level of state support for our courts. And I'm always reminded of the lessons of Commissioner Leak about how often Mecklenburg County, picks up the cost of what the state should be doing. And so none of your requests seem out of line, but at the same time, it's just a great example of how profoundly unfunded your offices are. Commissioner Susan Rodriguez and I toured the magistrates last year, and there are judges, Commissioner Leak, that are actually sitting in broken chairs, like all day long. And these, for the length of time that the magistrates are there, many of them are there overnight and working these long shifts, and they're when I saw that for the furniture, I witnessed that need personally. And so anyway, I think this is going to be a tough budget year, but I want you to know that even though I'm angry that the state doesn't do more, I certainly am proud of what we do at our courts here, and certainly think that our workers over in the courthouse deserve good chairs. And so thank you for your presentation, and no other comments.
Okay, Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Charleston, I'm a huge fan of yours. First of all, I have to say that. And I really want to follow up on what Commissioner Harden said. I am profoundly disappointed in our state. Once again, we have to talk about how our state is failing us. If we look at our current FY20 budget, we have $6,277,556 that is coming out of Mecklenburg County's budget going towards state things that should be funded by the state. Now, for public awareness, what we need for people to understand is that counties are only required to fund court facilities. The staffing is supposed to be funded at the state level. And so I respect our DA and our defenders. All our entire court system is profoundly important to our state and to our county. And the fact that we are failing, that our state is failing at this huge level, I have to tell you, I'm disgusted. And so I feel extremely torn about this. The fact that we're going to have a tough budget year. We have so many priorities, and then we're having to cover shortfall that the state is not doing its job. And I'm just sick and tired of it. So I don't actually have a question. I think that our courts are so extremely important to the lives of our residents, and it should be a higher priority than 2.31% of the state budget. It's laughable and it's disgusting, and I'm just fit to be tied. So I just had to say that for public awareness, that this is an issue that is a state issue. And so I just hope that we can find dollars to help with these problems that you all are having. I think the digital sign looks great. It's way more efficient. I mean, we're Mecklenburg County. We should have digital signage. We should be efficient. So I think these things are important. It's important for people to be sitting in chairs that aren't falling apart. But the fact that our state is failing us so profoundly, it needs to be raised up, and people need to be aware of that. So thank you for the opportunity to make my comments, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Cotham.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Charleston, for your presentation. I would echo my colleagues' comments. And I know since I've been on this board since 2012, we have talked about this every single year. And Charleston, I would also like at some point for you to tell us, what are you doing, not necessarily today, but what are you and your team doing to aggressively go after more funds? The idea that this court system is the third body of government and the court system receives so little is not acceptable. It hasn't been acceptable. It's been going on way too long, and we need to all come together and demand, and I never use that word, but to really push our legislators, all of our legislators, to do better. We continually, not only this, but Commissioner Rodriguez-McDowell talked about how the legislature was failing, and they have been failing, and it works for them. But they don't fail. I mean, there's a lot of people that feel like the legislature is doing a great job, but they are at the other end of the economic spectrum. And we at Mecklenburg County, from what I have understood from our wonderful budget and finance people, that Mecklenburg County, we spend more than $400 million that the state should spend. $400 million. That's $400 million that we can't spend on Central Piedmont or on CMS or on other things. And, but, you know, we keep doing it, and they know we'll do it because they know we want better for our community. But, you know, we do need to continue to harp on this. And so I am glad to join that echo of the legislature has continually for decades, they have not been fair to the third body of government. And it's terrible. One thing that you didn't mention, Charleston, that I want to bring up, because I'm in the courthouse often, And I have seen such great changes in recent years, and I attribute that to our Sheriff McFadden. But the deputies, the hardworking deputies who are there, who treat people with respect, who are there to help, who also help to calm very nervous people who are often having their worst day. And I know that they are great collaborators with the court system, and they are certainly a great part of it. But I just wanted to give them a shout out, and our sheriff, because I have certainly seen a difference. And even like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was in court myself, and one of the deputies helped me personally. So thank you for creating that great environment of respect for our sheriff's deputies who are over there. And thank you for all that you're doing to look out for our court employees, our judges, and all the workers there. And thank you for your service. And that concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner Folk.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Carter, for your excellent report, as always. I have to tell you, I'm glad to hear my colleagues' comments about the state of affairs of the funding of our court system. I am the only lawyer on this board, and I have been in these courthouses. We have a couple of them. I have been in these for many years, and thankfully this board will get another lawyer when I leave, who also, I believe, has had experience in these courtrooms. The problem I have is not only the funding level, but then the restrictions that are put on the counties. When we want to do things, we got to get permission of the AOC in order to do these things. I mean, that really boils my bumper, if you might permit me to say that. Here I am, I got to spend my money and I got to get your permission to spend it. That really bothers me. And if you're not going to fund what we need in our county, then let me fund it. And I think it's profoundly unfair that that we want to support things in our community and we are held back. I understand we want all the counties to be on an equal level. I get that. But the people of Mecklenburg County have needs. And we shouldn't have to fund these needs, but we do. So don't tie our hands in doing it in the process. We are responsible for court facilities. And we have a terrific courthouse that we built not too many years ago. And I hear one of your requests is for replacement of broken furniture. And what it highlights for me is what I've heard from others, too many others. Though we have a pretty courthouse, it is becoming perhaps not as clean as it should be. It is perhaps no longer as shiny as it used to be. And so I don't see any money allocated to our facilities maintenance in that regard, and keeping the courthouse and the hallways and stairways and all parts of the courthouse clean and shiny. I think we have to do that and encourage you to focus more attention on that aspect of our provision of facilities in our community, that we have a clean courthouse. I understand that we maybe have a new contractor, and perhaps that's an opportunity for us to address this issue. Nothing stays shiny forever. Got to maintain it. And we need to do that for our residents, particularly when any day you go in the courthouse, you will see overwhelmingly Black and brown faces, overwhelmingly. And the message that we send by not caring about the cleanliness and repair of chairs and furniture is that the people who are in that courthouse don't matter so much. And I fear that's the message that we send at the state level too, when we spend only 2.31% of, is that my time already?
Your time had been expended. That was the second notice.
Lord have mercy. Well, then let me just say cleanliness, and let's get back to electronic filing. I didn't see anything in here about electronic filing, so let's do something about that too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Scarborough. Commissioner Scarborough, you have any comments?
No comment.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Charleston, for your presentation. I know that you would not ask for a penny that you didn't need for the courts. And I share the frustration of my colleagues. When I was in 5th grade and we were learning about the structure of government, the judiciary is a pillar of democracy. And so it's hard to imagine that it's just not, that we have to beg and that it's been so unacceptable for so long. And I think, Charleston, it would help if you sent us a picture of the chairs, because I think when people see the condition that they're in, they'll have an understanding of your request, because I know that you are very thoughtful and thorough and a good steward of every dollar that you ask for. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Okay, Charleston, I want to start off by thanking you and your staff for the assistance that was provided to me through the self-help program. My colleagues don't know the story, but the self-help program saved me $245 a month for the rest of my life. Thank you so very much. I have one question. First of all, I'd like to know what your total budget request is. And second, unfortunately, I saw your original request before I saw your second request. And I noticed that the second request was substantially larger than the first request. So tell me what happened between the time your presentation to us was done and the presentation you just made.
Chairman Dunlap, thank you so much for that question. Matter of fact, there were probably about 5 presentations that we had initially, and based on correspondence going back and forth, some of it was lost in translation. Because we were keeping a keenful and watchful eye as it relates to what was going on, I went back and shaved off a lot of it. When we say shade off the fat, I shaved off not fat, but some of the meat of some of the requests. But in doing so, inadvertently, I left off some of the requests that I presented today. But there was more than that, for instance, the Court Ambassadors Program, the TCA apprenticeship. But I realized those things were not a major priority. And by deleting some of those items, it deleted a part of the column. And that is the reason why you saw a difference. As we submitted ours a month or so leading up to the budget presentation, each time I saw that there was something that could possibly wait, because I want to make sure that we're not asking for anything that we felt that we not wait on later to do.
Okay, with that being said, then I'm going to ask that you resend to us what your budget request is, because if I have to base it on what I have in my hand, and then I weigh that against what you presented today, there's a lot of conflict there. So if you could send us your budget request again, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll upload it through Emily's link that she sent me, because I asked to see if did they receive the last one, and my understanding that you all did, but I most definitely do that. Matter of fact, as soon as I get off this line, I'll submit that to you all.
Okay, as always, we appreciate your presentation. You always do an outstanding job and make a compelling justification for why we ought to do what you think we ought to do.
Thank you all. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, back to our county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item under our agenda today is our COVID-19 response update. I have a few items that I'm going to go over, and then I'm going to toss it to Gibbie to give her update. The first item under my update is about the status of our stay-at-home proclamation. As you know, we extended ours on April 16th. We extended our proclamation till April 29th, but we put a provision in there which said that we would extend automatically if the governor extended, but we would keep the same restrictions in place that we had. And that was the agreement that we reached between the county, the city, and the 6 towns. And we've been having some additional conversations as a group. And today, the group came to an agreement that we felt at this time, based on the data that we have here in Mecklenburg County, that we want to rescind our current order or our proclamation and align to what the governor's order has in it. And so that means a few things. There will be several things that would allow to operate now in the county under the governor's order that we did not permit under our order. So for example, I can give you sort of a feel for that. Car dealerships, vape shops, realtors. We had some restrictions on funerals that were more restrictive than what was in the governor's order. We had some more restrictions on lawn care than what was in the governor's order. We did not permit craft, hobby stores, furniture, and mattress stores to operate. They would be able to operate under the governor's order. We did not permit any sports courts to operate that allowed shared equipment, which is why we did not permit tennis. So under the governor's order, we would now permit tennis with guidance that we've received from the U.S. Tennis Association. And then beyond that, once the governor issued his order, the Department of Revenue is issuing a number of letters that were allowing exceptions to the governor's order or deeming them essential. Those would include auto body shops, dog groomers, housekeeping services, and carpet cleaners. And so those under the governor's order are now permitted. And when we rescind our order, those would be permitted because they would be permitted under the governor's order. The other thing that we talked about was this whole notion of drive-up retail or curbside retail that would allow retail stores to operate for curbside or retail, curbside or pickup only, so that people could call in or order online and then they could go to the store and actually pick it up. So in our case, things like sporting goods stores and other things that were not permissible under our order would be able to operate under this new method when we move to the governor's order. And so again, that is a consensus that we reached between the city, the county, and the 6 towns today. I'm happy to take questions about that. Tyrone is actually drafting a revised proclamation that will again need to be signed by the county commission chair, the mayor of the city of Charlotte, and the mayors of the 6 towns. But again, we think that the data that we have in place today in terms of where we are in cases and hospital capacity, that we think it's time for us to be able to lift those restrictions and move and align with the governor's order. So I'm happy to take any questions about that now, or do you want me to continue the rest of my comments?
I prefer you continue, because afterwards, the last item on the agenda is commissioner's report. So let's do everything covert, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, great. The other thing, I just want to give you just a brief update on our loan programs. On the Small Business Loan Stabilization Fund, there's been $1.5 million of loans that have been approved. There are some that have been denied because they didn't meet the requirements. And then there's several that are still being considered. At this point in time, we are oversubscribed. We've got applications totaling about $7.9 million worth of applications. And so once the application process is done and all of the applications are processed, then we can come back to the board and you can decide whether or not you want to add additional money to that fund. And to this point, the micro loan fund, again, that was $1 million fund. And up to this point, we've approved about $90,000 in loans. And those are geographically dispersed, obviously, throughout the county, because there's only certain places where those can operate. So that's an update on that. The other thing I just wanted to mention as well is I have been in conversations over the last week or so with NASCAR as well as Joe Gibbs Racing and my counterpart in Cabarrus County, as well as Iredell County, so that we could be in alignment as it relates to NASCAR. Joe Gibbs Racing is the only race team that we have in our county, and I was waiting for Cabarrus County to make a decision about whether or not they were going to permit their race teams to go back into their shops. The feedback that I got from Cabarrus County is that they were waiting for the governor to make a decision about the Coca-Cola 600, which he did while we're in this meeting, and he feels at this point that the race will be able to go on potentially if health situation is maintained without fans. And so based on that, we would allow Joe Gibbs Racing to go back into their shop to be able to get ready for that race. So that ends my comments, and I, again, can kick it over to Gibbie now, and she can give you an update on her part of the presentation.
Based on the questions that we got at the last meeting. So at this point in time, we've had 1,528 confirmed cases in Mecklenburg County. About half of those have been released from isolation, which means they are no longer infectious based on what we know at this point in time. They've met the criteria that CDC has put out. We've had 45 deaths to date. One of the things that you should have noted in the data that we put out yesterday is several new charts, and we put this data out in the same way that the state put it out. It's the same indicators that the state is using to track whether we are doing what we need to with social distancing moving forward as we open things up. And what we're seeing in this data, which is we're looking at 14-day trends, which is the infection cycle of the virus. It takes about 2 weeks for us to see the mobility of, the impact of what's happening today. So if we're seeing increased cars on the road, or if we're seeing more people in stores or whatever, we won't see the impact of that for 2 weeks. So that's why we're tracking this 14-day period of data. So the first graph that I'd speak to is the one looking at cases reported by date. And right now what we're seeing with a 7-day average is a stable trend over the last 14 days. A second one is the daily percent positive of laboratory COVID tests. So the number of positives per test being conducted, again, looking at a 7-day average. We're seeing about a 9% positivity rate right now and a stable trend with that as well. And lastly, we're looking at hospitalizations of COVID patients. And with our 7-day average through the 26th of April, we were seeing a slight decrease in hospitalizations. We'll have to keep a close eye on that because that could change very quickly. So what I'm saying for the most part is that we're seeing stability in those 3 indicators. Stability does not indicate an increase or a decrease. It is just stable. So in other words, we're not moving in the downward trajectory that the governor has spoken to that we want to see as we move forward. The other additional graph that we had in the data was the social distancing index. We are now looking at the University of Maryland COVID-19 impact analysis platform, which is what's being used nationally. And what that has shown us is a sustained increase in available mobility tracking since our order went into place. So the order did have an impact on mobility in our community, and we'll continue to watch that as we move forward. I wanted to speak briefly about emergency department data that we've been tracking. There were questions at our last meeting about trends that we may be seeing and concerns that people had around several different issues. We look to our emergency room data to help us with that. This is data that's collected at the state level, but it's collected for counties. So what we're seeing so far, and this is from January 2020 to April 18, 2020, So our emergency department visits for injuries due to motor vehicle crashes has dropped dramatically. And that's got to have a direct correlation to the lack of cars on the road. So just something we'll need to keep an eye on as things start opening up and more people are driving. In terms of emergency room visits for suicide attempts or self-harm, we've actually seen a slight decrease over the last month in that indicator. ED visits related to mental health and substance abuse, including overdoses as well as violence, were stable, and in some cases we saw slight downward trends. Our ED visits for stroke were also down pretty significantly. We're not really sure what the reason for that is, but it's a pattern that's being reported other parts of the country, with the thought that some people are fearful of going to the emergency room with an acute illness, so they're just not showing up in the hospital. We actually have our vital statistics team looking to explore any death trends that we've seen over the last couple of months, and we'll see if that helps us understand that particular trend. The other thing we've noticed is calls to the Poison Control Center for cleaning materials and disinfectants showed a spike leading up to the introduction of the stay-at-home order, and those have continued compared to last year in terms of them being more elevated. Some of that might be due to the fact that we have more children at home getting into things that maybe they shouldn't be getting into. But again, another trend that we're continuing to look at. And lastly, wanted to speak to long-term care facilities. As you know, we received changed guidance from the state, actually received that late Sunday evening, that they would begin to release the names of the long-term care facilities in the state that had outbreaks, COVID-19 outbreaks, as well as the number of individuals infected in those facilities, or who tested positive in those facilities, I should say, and the number of deaths in those facilities. We had already released the names, so we went ahead and released the data based on state guidance. We now have 11 facilities. We added an additional one since yesterday. That's Asbury Health and Rehab Center, which currently has 2 cases. The other thing that I will mention is that FEMA at the federal level has committed to providing 7-day supplies of PPE to all Medicare and Medicaid approved long-term care facilities. They will start that the first week of May and continue it through mid-June and reassess at that point. So starting next week, they will get a 7-day supply of PPE, and then that will be reassessed and replenished till the mid of June. In the meantime, we are working through the EOC to provide the PPE that these facilities are letting us know that they have need of right now. So that concludes my report today. Thank you.
Okay, Dena, before I open it up for questions, first of all, Madam Clerk, how much time do we have?
Sorry about that, 27 minutes.
Okay, 27 minutes. Okay, Dena, before we open it up for questions, let me make 2 requests because I think this might help us with our questions. We want to know specifically what date the order will be rescinded. And then if we can produce one document that says everything you can do under the order, because there are so many orders, so many updates to the order. These things are getting confusing to me, and I'm sure they're getting confusing to everybody. I saw a request today from Elaine and some other folks about things that people were requesting. And so I think that if we can tell people what they can do, that might help us a lot in terms of being able to respond to people's concerns. Okay, 27 minutes.
Can I just make a comment about that, Mr. Chairman? And I think I'm going to ask Tyrone to help me with this as well. Order will be rescinded tomorrow. Ours expires on the 29th, so that would be tomorrow.
Okay.
In terms of putting a document together that's comprehensive, I think that we potentially run the risk of leaving something out. So we're going to let the governor's order stand, and if there's questions about what people can or can't do, we'll try to answer them. But we may have to get information from the governor's office about the intent of their order. So we just want to be careful that we're not, when we try to include everything, that we don't leave something out inadvertently.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think that might pose a problem, but I think even if we have to ask from the governor, they might leave something out and let people call and ask about that one thing that they think that might be left out. But it would really be helpful to know what's in it. And so however we can get that, if we have to call a governor's office or what have you, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, for this first round, I think we get about 3 minutes each, unless you don't want to ask questions at the end, because we end at 5 o'clock, time certain. So we'll start with Commissioner Leak first.
Thank you. I just want to ask about, that domestic violence is a major issue, and hope that we are setting up some better means by which not just domestic violence from the physical perspective, but from the verbal perspective. The other thing is masks and gloves. Those items are going to be provided by Novant through Jerome Williams, Dr. Jerome Williams, who communicated with me about my district. And I'd like to know from Gibbie, she did not give us any information pertaining to gender and race, and I want that information.
Can you explain what situation you're looking for gender and race information?
As of today, who's still in the hospital, who's been still listed as being the persons who have the virus in Mecklenburg County?
So the information that we have available on gender and race was in the report that came out yesterday. And I'm looking for the pages, and I'm going to have to, I'll resend the report. Oh, here it is. Sorry. So right now, from the, we have about 55% of our cases are in females, 45 in male.
Give us the exact number.
I'd have to go in and work the number. We're given that in percentages.
All right, go right ahead.
And then for race, it's 30% white, 45% black, 18% Hispanic, and not quite 3% Asian.
And what was the gender again?
Gender was 55% female and 45% male.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you done, Commissioner Lee?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to serve my people. I'm thanking the district too.
All right, Commissioner Jarrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dena, could I just get clarification around, I know our order expires tomorrow, and does it require a new proclamation? Did I hear that correctly? Or does the governor's order just sort of supplement and move into place there?
No, we have to do another order to resend out.
Gotcha. The second thing, Gibbie, can you give us an update on where we are with testing? Obviously, our partners with Novant and Atrium are performing the testing. What is that looking like? Where are we? And can you give us more of a sense of where we are?
So we are averaging around 600 to 700 tests a day in the county that we are aware of. Again, the only ones that are reporting the testing that they're doing to us is Novant and Atrium. We've had conversations about additional testing that we might need to do in the county. We're taking a look at that. And the other challenge, again, continues to be accessibility to tests, as well as making sure we're maintaining our appropriate amount of PPE in the county. But that seems to be improving. The state has given us a little bit of guidance around testing, but it's basically what we've been doing, which is focusing on our high-risk populations and our healthcare providers and first responders. But we are having conversations about potential for expanding that over the next couple of weeks.
Right. So I guess my comment to that would be, as we loosen restrictions, and we're opening up the economy here, I think it's imperative that, we're moving, expeditiously around the testing piece, because that seems to be the linchpin that could blow everything up. So I think it frankly, I think it really needs to move beyond the conversation stage and needs to be the action stage.
Well, I will say,
excuse me one second, I apologize. Because what I would have loved to have seen today was also not only, some of the where we are now, but I would love to have seen simultaneously, us saying, hey, we're ramping up testing during this time as well, so we could closely monitor. So, and I'll take your comment now.
All I was going to say is it's directly related to access to testing supplies. We do have some additional capacity. I think we are trying to be judicious about how we use that. We know that as we move into increasing essential services and more workers coming back into the workforce, we're going to need to have more testing available.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Harden.
Thank you. And I just have a couple of questions that I want brief response if possible. What is the status of our field hospital?
At this time, the hospitals have not, as you remember, they withdrew their request for a field hospital, and they have not submitted another one. They were able to create additional surge capacity within their four walls. And at this point in time, they're not even into their surge capacity yet. So it appears as if they have plenty of hospital capacity within their four walls.
Thank you. When are we going to get numbers of the unemployed in our community?
As soon as the state is able to provide them to us.
So are we asking them frequently, or, I mean, again, what can I do to advocate to get those numbers? What can I do? It feels frustrating to me that we have no idea how many unemployed people who were denied claims in our community.
Well, you can go and try to get a request at the Unemployment Commission. I can ask Starla to continue to follow up, as well as Peter Zeiler. But as I indicated earlier, they're focused right now on processing claims, and they haven't been in a position to give us the data, but we'll keep trying to get it.
Thank you, because that's really important to me. And then the last thing I want to say is that I'm really glad that FEMA is giving or is providing long-term care and nursing home facilities a 7-day supply. And then they're going to do that for a month. But that commitment just feels wholly inadequate. And I'm just hearing lots of stories from, nursing aides, people who are working with the elderly in our community that just don't even begin to have the adequate protective equipment to even begin, much less the seniors also having the masks that they need to wear. It's not only do the people who work in these facilities need them, but the people who are in the facilities need them, who are living in the facilities need them. So Gibbie, can you tell me how we can raise that issue up as commissioners to highlight that at the state level for just how while I'm appreciative, the response just seems inadequate?
I can. I'd be happy to push any recommendations or find names for you of the individuals that you need to push your messages to at the state level. At this point, the state was supposed to be providing this and evidently has not been able to. And that's why FEMA is stepping in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for Dena on the loan program, the small business loan program. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. You said it was applications are totaling 7.9 million. Are we still accepting applications if folks are still wanting to apply?
We are still accepting applications because we want to understand what the true demand is. Right. That way, when we come back to you, we can give you a better sense of if we wanted to consider re-upping that in some way, that we know what the true demand is. So we are still accepting applications.
Okay, that's great. I really wanted to make sure that that's still available. We don't just like sort of, have a hard stop date on that. I think the other comment I just wanted to make is I'm really pleased that the decision, was made to match the governor's order. I think having all of our towns and the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County all on the same order is extremely important. I just wanted to say that, if there is a little bit of loosening now of some of the restrictions, I think it's extremely important for us to get the message out about PPE as far as masks, that, making sure that all people have access to masks, whether it's elderly, whether it's low income, whether, need to have that access. And so I think it's really important that we drive that message. But I really wanted to ask Gibbie about gloves. Are gloves something that we should also be focused on, or is masks the number one thing?
Masks are the number one thing, that and social distancing. Gloves are not necessary as long as you're washing your hands and using hand sanitizer. That will take care of any exposure that you have on your hands and keeping your hands away from your face. But the masks and the social distancing are the priorities right now.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all's update today, and that concludes my comments.
Commissioner
If I could just say one thing, I just got some additional update on the unemployment information, and it indicates here that we will not be able to get information until May 22nd for the month of March. So just wanted to pass that along. I got that from Danielle Frazier from Charlotte Work. So I won't be able to get anything until May 22nd.
All right, thank you for that update. Commissioner Cotham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you asking the question about the date. So that was one of my questions. Gibbie, I just have a couple of questions about one of my favorite topics, the porta-johns for the homeless. First of all, I thank Dena for starting that along with her team. But I'd kind of like to know what the status is, because I'm hearing and I'm getting pictures from our homeless neighbors, and some of them have said that the porta-johns needed to be cleaned. And I guess I wanted to know what the process is. My guess was that whoever we're renting them from would come every few days or so and remove them and bring clean ones. And is that how it works? And are they still located on that map that we received about 10 days ago? Because I've heard that there's not one around the Hal Marshall Center, but can you just kind of give me an update on the process of have we expanded? I know Dena was working hard to expand them. Has that happened? And if so, are they in other areas of the county? And just help me understand about the cleanliness of them.
So, yes, ma'am, they pulled back the ones that were out there. They needed to be replaced. It's my understanding that we have at least porta-johns going to 12 different sites in the county tomorrow. They will be cleaned twice a day, which is an improvement over what we had before. And I do know that around Hal Marshall will be one of the sites. There'll be hand washing stations with these porta-johns. We're not really putting another map out because a lot of them are being stationed near some of the homeless encampments and really didn't somewhere. And we've been actually working with our homeless service providers to help us locate the best places for that. So by tomorrow at the latest, those will all be in place.
Well, that is great news, and I appreciate I appreciate all that. I appreciate your sensitivity to the encampments, and I know the community will be happy to hear that we've expanded them and we'll get them cleaned twice a day. That's great news. Thank you very much. That completes my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Fuller?
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
3 minutes.
Let me understand on the stay-at-home order. So the last time we acted on it, we agreed that it would be extended to the 29th and then would be automatically extended if the governor extended his order. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And was that in writing?
Yes, that's correct.
Proclamation.
And so now I'm understanding that there is some other action taken to now rescind our order. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Who proposed that?
We had some conversations with our town managers last night. The town of Matthews, that board voted to break away from the county's order on the 29th. And we were having other conversations with other towns that also expressed some concerns about continuing on with the county order. So we had conversations yesterday and today, and we came to an agreement that we would move to the governor's order. That was an agreement we could reach between all the parties.
So basically, we went back on the earlier agreement that we had. Is that correct?
We are going to take away the restrictions that were in our order that made our order more restrictive than the governor's.
But that is in contradiction to what we last did, correct?
It's rescinding what we did before. That's right.
Yes. So somebody took some action that made us basically go back on our word, right?
I don't know if it was our word. It was just what we had agreed to do. But the language in our original, in the order that we had last time, always had language in it that said that we could rescind. So rescinding the order was always a possibility in all the orders that we had.
Well, maybe, but it wasn't the conversation that we had the last time we acted. So here's my problem. My problem is that these actions have served to undermine the county's public health role, and I believe that the statutes also undermine the county's public health role and undermine our public health authority. So we have responsibility for public health throughout the county, even in these municipalities, yet we don't have authority with respect to public health, even in these municipalities. I think that's wrong. And I think the people who have been pushing this effort to undermine our actions to respond to this COVID-19, they ought to be ashamed of themselves, who are pushing to reopen in this reckless and political way. They should be ashamed of themselves. And I think we've got to address this with the General Assembly because we don't need to be here again. This should not be the subject of a consensus. It's the county that has the public health authority, and we ought to have the true authority that goes with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Fuller. Commissioner Scarborough.
Commissioner Trevor Fuller, in reference to we ought to have the in other words, we should be able to stick to our guns. But we said something, we ought to keep with it instead of just going back and forth and back and forth. Nobody will believe. Who should we believe? We continue going back and forth. So I think we ought to stick with our guns.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Scarborough. Commissioner Powell.
Hi, I'm here. So I was hoping that if we did go with the governor's order that we would at least require masks I'm just going to keep pushing for masks for everyone as much as I can. I know that there's a supply problem, but I think we really need to have everyone wearing a mask when they can't socially distance. My big question today is, for now, is I had requested the formation of a nursing home long-term care facility task force and at the local level. And maybe you can help me understand, you know, why we're taking so much from guidance from the state when we have such a crisis here, especially in Cornelius. I just think we need to have a much higher standard of care with our populations who are at risk. So can you speak to that, Gibbie? Like, are we allowed to do that at a local level? Because it's, you know, we have such a need for that right now.
We have limitations as to what we can do at the local level. We do not license these facilities, and we do not have any direct management over them other than from the public health perspective. And I want to assure you that we're doing everything we possibly can to work with these facilities to make sure that they have what they need, but also that they're using the best possible practice. We're working with Medic, as well as our environmental health staff who have assessed these facilities, are checking in on them to make sure that they are being compliant with the work that they need to do. But we are continuing to have conversations with the state, requesting their guidance and their involvement in making sure that residents are receiving what they should. But that is one of the constraints we have, is that we do not manage or license those facilities.
So it's an obstacle for us, and I want to help with that, and I will. And I hope my colleagues will as well. But I just feel like we really need to hone in on this right now and do better. I mean, I don't even know if, I mean, we need to increase staffing levels, not even just have standard staffing, but I'll work on that later. And I want the whole world to know, like, I know how you're working night and day, all the time, nonstop, every day. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Well, I have one question for Dena, and it's a little bit different than the questions that have been raised already. Given the fact that counties can now borrow money at 0% interest, would it make sense for us to borrow money, given that we have outstanding loans that have interest, and given the fact that CMS is still trying to purchase land that we're responsible for? It just seems to me that it might be an opportunity for us. Any comments?
Well, our finance team is always looking at opportunities to see whether or not we can refinance any of our existing debt. But I can certainly go back and have them do an analysis and see if there's any potential savings that can be achieved by doing a refinance of our existing debt.
All right, thank you. Any final comments, Madam Manager?
No, that's it. I just want to thank everybody for their continued support. We're, continuing to work every day on this pandemic, and we'll continue to keep you apprised as we move forward.
All right. Well, I want to thank my colleagues for adhering to the rules we put in place. We've got 15 minutes now for anybody who's got something to report. We'll continue to go in order. Commissioner Leak.
My first question is, do we stay at home now?
Yes.
I'm asking Dena.
Yes, you need to stay at home until at least May 8th.
Well, I'm unhappy with the outcome of this county and those townships. We gave in just like Mr. Fuller said we did without us participating in the process. We had no input, but yet they're part of Mecklenburg County. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Jarrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things real quick. One to just reiterate and say thank you to staff for all of their just hard work and sacrifice during this time. To the community, thank you for the support that we see time and time again, people with selfless sacrifice. And just want to always lift up and keep on the radar, those folks that are most vulnerable, that are in professions of service that are at high risk. And I hope that we will continue to lift those folks up, keep them on the forefront, at the forefront of our minds, and to ensure that our most vulnerable stay protected during this time, because we're going to have a sustained effort. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Harden.
Thank you, Chairman. So I appreciate the update on the unemployment, that we'll be waiting till May 22nd to get our first understanding of what March's unemployment numbers look like. And, I feel like, it's, it's raining outside, and we don't even know how much we don't even have a good rain gauge in terms of what our employment looks like in our community. So it feels like, it's hard to know how to plan when you can't even measure the amount, when you don't have accurate data that measures the job situation in our community. So that's a continued frustration of mine. So I do want to address, follow up on Commissioner Powell's comment about the long-term care and nursing home task force, and say that, it reminds me of the situation around pre-K. And we had a crisis in our community, and the community, pre-K wasn't in our lane. And we said, we care about these people in our community, and we made an absolute commitment to understanding what was involved with pre-K and being a leader in that space. And I'm super proud of that effort. And I'm here to say that I understand that we don't regulate nor oversee the regulatory pieces of these nursing care and long-term care facilities. At the same time, these are, I have the most long-term care nursing home facilities throughout the county in my district. And we know that these places are the epicenter of poor health outcomes for our community. And here's what I want to, I'm speaking directly to the community. We have a scorecard now for the governor in terms of what it's going to take to reopen our community. And it seems to me that if we want to reopen, and if we're trying to target certain numbers and declines in outbreak, then we have to improve the health outcomes of seniors in our community. And that we ought to be laser focused on that, because if we can cut those outcomes, if we can improve those outcomes for those folks, that's 50% of our cases. So we ought to be like laser focused on trying to improve the outcomes for seniors in long-term care and nursing home facilities, because we know that is the criteria for which we're going to open up our community. And secondly, and I want to just reiterate this, that the governor's plan at every phase, thank you.
Go ahead and finish your comment.
The governor's phase at every level says that nursing homes and long-term care facilities will be locked down. I'm sorry, but that is no life for seniors. We owe it to our seniors to figure out what are better ways of living for them as we live through COVID. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Susan Rodriguez-McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just really want to say how privileged I feel to be a part of this board, because Commissioner Harden's comments just now, I really want to highlight the fact that if half of our cases are in that community of nursing homes and long-term care, we should be pouring resources and not caring whose responsibility it is. If that's what it takes to get us reopened, is a real focus on that community. And then I'm also privileged to be colleagues with Commissioner Powell, and what she said about requiring masks, I 100% agree with. If that's what is required to keep people safe as we start to loosen restrictions, then we should be, making them easily accessible and required. And then thirdly, I want to say that I agree with Commissioner Fuller on his points about if the towns and the city is not responsible for public health, then I do have a problem with the process on how we've decided to rescind. I am pleased that we are all on the same order, but I am not pleased with the way we got here necessarily. So I want to say thank you to my colleagues for being top-notch commissioners, and I just feel privileged to be part of this body. So thank you. That concludes my comments.
All right, Commissioner Copham.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to also just thank our Dena and Gibbie and all of the county staff who've been working so hard on all of this. I am glad that again, I know there's a difference of opinion on the towns, but this is where the state makes these rules. We don't make these rules. And I am glad that the towns stuck with us as long as they did. And some of them, I don't think were as interested in staying as long, but they did. And I am grateful to them. And I do think, though, there has been a lot of confusion among our residents throughout the county as to why are there two different plans. And I think the governor's plan is more than adequate. And yes, it wasn't as restrictive as ours, but we can still put that information out and encourage people to be more restrictive. But I do think that it will reduce the confusion. And I think the result of that is that the people will follow the order, better than they have, because there'll just be one order. So anyway, that's just where I am on this. And again, I represent all of the 6 towns, and that's just what I hear and feel. And I thank them for being with us as long as they have been. So that completes my comments. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Fuller.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I keep raising these issues about this stay-at-home order because I perceive risk involved. I perceive the risk that once we're past this situation, that the fact that there is confusion is a threat to our public health authority, not just in this particular situation, but anything that comes down the line. And I think if you don't pay attention, if you simply allow things to happen, that sets a precedent for what's going to come next, because what they will say next in another situation is they're going to bring back what you allowed in this situation. So I think what we've discovered is that there is a hole in our law that, in my view, is a threat to the county's public health authority. It should not be different in a non-emergency situation than in an emergency situation. Here's what I mean. If we weren't under an emergency order, there would be no question about the county's public health authority throughout the county, even in municipalities. Yet somehow in an emergency, the county's authority is less. That's an issue, and we can't ignore that. I don't mean to put the county at odds with our municipalities. That's not what I'm about at all. But I am concerned that politics has entered the discussion. And I believe that too is a threat to the public health authority. When you have a public health emergency, it should be about public health, not about politics. And if you allow politics in, it's going to stay in. So I take this very seriously. And I know I ruffle feathers. I know people don't like what I say, but I'm telling you that if you don't pay attention to these things, you're going to find yourself later in another situation without tools, without the ability to actually manage public health. And I think the fact that there's confusion, the fact that there is a hole here in the law is a matter that we should be very concerned about. So I just want us to keep moving forward, to let the data, to let our experience guide us, and not let politics in, which is what is occurring, not just here, but across the country. And I think that is a danger to public health. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Amen. Amen, Mr. Fuller.
Okay, your opportunity, Ms. Scarborough.
I'm done. I said I passed the very first time. I have no. There's been many things that have been said that I have agreed, that I do agree with, and I don't see any reason to add anything to it. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, Commissioner Powell.
I'm here. So I represent District 1, which has 3 towns in it. And I respect everyone's perspective on this. And I think that unity and being unified right now is extremely important. And I think that, you know, our mayors in North Mecklenburg have been unified and we're all together. I really admire the emergency management team for every day listening to the input from different elected leaders through town managers. I think unity and being unified are really important at this time. And I think that there is no playbook for this. So we have to find balance. And I believe that every mayor in North Mecklenburg loves their community and doesn't want to see any suffering. And so while, you know, they don't want confusion, they want a slow phased reopening. And I think that if we see any indication of an increased incidence, I believe because of the respect that the emergency management team has shown to each mayor, I believe that we can all go forward together, unified, in a way that we need to. Like, we need to be unified for the public to get through this. And there are no magic answers, but we're doing the best we can, and it has to be data-driven. And I've been peppered with conversations and emails and phone calls, and I have a deep belief that every mayor in North Mecklenburg cares deeply. I don't know the Southern mayors as well, but I believe they care too. I mean, you don't go into this job if you don't care. So thank you to the emergency management team for just really listening to different perspectives so that we can all work together to move forward in a balanced way, where if we see a negative impact, that we can just stop and work together to address that. And hopefully we'll do a good job and we won't go backwards. And then Commissioner Harden, at every level of government, we need to expand the responsiveness, because you can't reach the state government right now. And like, I'm getting phone calls where even if there's fraud or things are happening where like it's an emergency, that they have to be able to contact the state government. There's just no responsiveness. They don't have the ability to respond because they're being so overwhelmed. So it makes sense to me that we're not going to see a report until May, because it's frustrating, but they want my time. But thank you to everyone. I really appreciate everyone trying to work together.
Thank you. I just want to take these last few minutes to say to our community that I am really encouraged as I go out into the community. While we cannot mandate people wearing masks, if you pay attention, more and more people are listening to our conversation and understand how important wearing masks are to helping us get rid of the virus. So I want to continue to encourage them and to thank them for doing so. Also, I want to thank them, and I know it's been tough as it relates to following the order. It's been tougher on some than it is for others. I know some of you have gotten some of the emails and letters that I've received from that group of folk who don't care anything about anybody but themselves. And what was ironic about that is that one of the leaders of this Reopen North Carolina movement themselves were victims of the virus. And so I'm just thankful that the majority of our community has followed the orders, that we've been able to get as far as we have in terms of getting rid of this virus. And I want to continue them. I want to just ask them to continue to follow that order. Again, I can't go without thanking staff for all the work that you do, our county manager, our attorney, our clerks. I can't go without thanking all of our law enforcement and health providers and all those people who make Mecklenburg County safe for us. So with that said, I think that concludes our agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Commissioner Harden.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Harden. Roll call vote. Commissioner Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Leak.
Yes.
Commissioner Jarrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Harden.
Yes.
Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell.
Aye.
Commissioner Cotham.
Aye.
Commissioner Fuller.
Aye.
Commissioner Scarborough.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Meeting stands adjourned.